Hi, I'm Steve Morgan, founder of Cybersecurity Ventures and editor-in-chief at Cybercrime magazine. I'm here today with Jason Nelson, client security principal at ePlus, a global provider of advisory and managed security services. To learn more about ePlus, visit eplus.com. Jason, welcome. Great to have you with us today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So as you know, Jason, October is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, NCSAM, and ePlus is drawing attention to four of the most daunting challenges faced by IT and security teams globally. So let's dig in and tackle the first one, managed detection and response. The average time to identify and contain a data breach is 280 days, according to IBM. So the idea of cybercriminals dwelling in networks for that long is scary. Is it true, Jason, and what can be done about it?
So just to start off, I think we should focus on how scary that is that, cyber criminals can live in an environment for weeks, months, potentially even into years. And I think that's really the focus on is how do we take security staffs and make them smarter? That's really what we want to focus on. Is how do I give my security practitioners who are working so hard and give them better tools, give them better visibility to remediate faster. So it's not just about tooling, it's about giving them additional resources. Maybe I'm giving them additional headcount, maybe I'm giving them additional outsourced help, whatever we need to do. It's a focus on making my people better, making them be able to be faster, and then hopefully make their lives a lot better. So we talk about managed detection and response, and it's focusing on, reducing that 2:00 in the morning. Hey, you've got to come in, and we've got a security event. It's making these people better. It's making them faster to remediate.
Makes sense. So let's move on and talk about identity and access management, or IAM. ePlus works with a large number of enterprises globally. What are you hearing from CISOs and their teams? What's keeping them up at night around IAM?
Yeah, that's a great question. And people who know me really well, I use this terminology of I've got a couple hills I'm willing to die on, meaning if you have these security controls in place, I believe you've so greatly elevated your security posture. Not that it means that you're completely out of the woods. There's always more security threats coming up, but my first one is identity and access management. And the reason I think it's so fundamental, and when we talk to CISOs and large organizations, if you can't understand who your people are and what they're accessing, then it almost doesn't matter what else you do. Because if you can't understand that I am who I say I am, so focus on things like single sign-on, so giving people a good user experience. But then from a security perspective, talk about things like multi-factor authentication, which I believe is one of the most simple but most important security controls you can put in place. Because even if your username and password are compromised, if you still have that multi-factor, which requires that secondary authentication, your username and password, if compromised, are relatively useless. So when we talk to CISOs, a lot of it is untangling, for lack of a better way, the garbage that is legacy identity and access management, simplifying the platforms and making everything streamlined so that I now have in a single platform, single sign-on, multi-factor, and then finally lifecycle management. So as people come to the organization and how they leave, it's how do I make sure that they are onboarded correctly, they're offboarded correctly. And again, it comes down to fixing a business problem, but the security team is right there in tandem. And that's when I feel like security teams are most successful, is when they're just as entwined with the business as anybody else.
So we have to talk about the cloud, Jason. We're seeing a rapid movement in that space. SaaS, or SASE, a lot of people pronounce that SASE, stands for Secure Access Service Edge. Gartner says that 40% of enterprises will adopt SASE by 2024. What's leading to such rapid adoption of this new approach to security?
So it's interesting. I think one, what a great buzzword that is SASE. But when we think about again, we probably talked a lot about it, but COVID, and in the matter of days and weeks, we sent workers home, and now we're saying, how do I secure all this? So how do I wrap all this inside of a secure access, secure remote edge? How does that play into identity and access management? Same way, if I can't validate who they are, what they're accessing, and then with the cloud, focus that I have all of these bundled together. So SASE is, in my mind, one of the biggest focuses on people are already moving away from physical data centers, everything on-prem with cloud adoption, SaaS applications. But now COVID accelerated that by a tremendous amount, because now all my users aren't behind a data center and whatever you want to call the traditional security stack. So SASE is putting all of those security controls and grouping them together, and so that I can still protect my user. I can still understand what they are, what they're doing, what they're accessing. I said a little bit earlier, my hills to die on. The second one, the first one being identity and access management. The second one is endpoint, because if I can't control the endpoint and I can't control the user with that high fidelity data sitting there, I'm in for a world of trouble. So see this massive cloud adoption. It's not going to slow down. It's only going to accelerate. And I think the most important thing that SASE allows a security team to do is to get involved with the infrastructure team, get involved with the networking team, and not be the person that holds them back, but actually be the people that enable them to move faster.
So you touched on COVID-19. Of course, we can't have a conversation today, without, being on point around the pandemic. 98% of people surveyed by the World Economic Forum said they'd like the option to work from home if they can continue to do so permanently. So, what does this mean for CISOs and security teams? Are we looking at a situation where there's going to be a much larger number of remote workers over a longer period of time we may be expecting? And what does this mean for, managing security?
So I think it's a couple things. First of all, I think we need to focus on our people. So are our people able to be successful? Are they able to be happier? Do they live a better quality of life being at home and still able to get the job done? I think that's almost one of the great things that I think we found in this COVID is that it's okay to have a barking dog. It's okay to have a crying baby. I've had friends of mine and coworkers who are cradling babies while on conference calls, just because that's what we have to do. And people are okay with that. So I think first, let's take care of our people. And then I think secondly, I do think that we're going to see a continued work from home. I think people are going to start to tiptoe into the offices, maybe in shifts. But I think this is going to be, focusing on the new norm. And I think as I, look at what that means going forward, I think we focus on identity and access management, SASE, and then, the endpoint, and then focusing on, data protection as well. So again, if you're wondering, those are my three hills to die on, the last one being data visibility. But when we go forward and we have all these remote workers, it's how am I controlling my people? How am I controlling their access? And how am I controlling the data that they're actually accessing? I think we really have to evaluate as security practitioners where our data resides and how we're wrapping security controls around it. For so long, we've used this example of the castle and the moat, and I think we've done a really good job. But now that moat is in the cloud, and we can't put those borders around that we're so used to. So I think this is going to be the new normal. And I think we need to focus on emerging our security practice, merging them with the business. And again, going back to your cloud question, I think we have to focus on butting up with the security team and the infrastructure team, working in tandem. And I think that's how we'll be successful. It's no longer these silos. The cloud, work from home, it doesn't allow for the security team to just be off by itself, for the infrastructure team to be off by themselves. That collaboration is really going to be critical moving forward.
So Jason, great feedback on those 4 important points. I want to pivot here and ask about your background. You have a very impressive body of work over the past decade. What are you seeing that's different or the same insofar as cybercrime and cybersecurity over the past decade?
Well, I actually harken back to my first manager, who one of the first things I came in, I was always, concerned about, I don't know this, I don't know this. And I'm not a legacy networking person, or I'm not a legacy this or that. And what he said to me is, he said, don't worry about what you don't know now, because in 5 years it won't matter. And that's just stuck with me for so long, because it's not that it completely doesn't matter, but the security landscape moves so fast. I remember, when we started, no one talked about malware. No one talked about ransomware, not really. The terminology, we use terms like advanced persistent threat, APTs. Now we don't even really use that term that often. SASE didn't exist. Identity and access management was handled by the business. It wasn't a security problem. And I think fundamentally what we're seeing, and you ask what we're seeing change, I think it's that security is embedded in everything we do. And that's a culture thing. That's a wrapping the security team in the business decisions. So as we do adopt the cloud, as we do adopt all of these SaaS-based applications that make the business run better, we have to wrap security inside of it. And I think sometimes you'll hear kind of the cheesy phrase of, security is now a boardroom conversation. I don't even argue that it's a boardroom conversation. It's an everyday person conversation. I knew that I picked, the right career when my grandmother called me about the Target breach and said, "Is it okay to shop at Target?" And I went, "That's it." Because that's a 90-year-old woman who has no idea about a computer, but saying, "Hey, I saw this on the news. Should I be concerned?" That is when I saw security elevate to a completely different level. And again, I think it's only going to continue to move forward. It's only going to get more difficult to stop cybercrime. They're only going to get smarter. So we as a community have to get smarter as well.
So Jason, before we let you go, talk to us about ePlus and what the company is doing in security. Not a lot of people know you have about a $500 million security business. Very impressive. Tell us about the leadership there, what the company does, and where you're going.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the exciting things to me is, ePlus is about a $500 million security practice wrapped up in a over $2 billion integrator consultancy firm. So what I love about that is we can walk into a conversation and have a conversation with the security team, with the storage team, with the cloud team, and I can bring myself, I can bring my peers that are, storage infrastructure, and let's all sit down and have a conversation, because like I just mentioned, security crosses everything. And that's what makes ePlus special to me. I think we've seen a heavy focus on some of the topics we've talked about today: cloud, identity and access management, managed security services. We do those, and I believe we do them exceedingly well. And what excites me as I've seen our security practice grow over the last several years is we are investing so heavily in security. We from our CEO down, it's a push that we have to secure everything we sell. We have to have a security conversation in everything we do, because if we don't, we're leaving our client that we care about at risk. If we're not asking those questions, if we're not saying, great, you have a huge push to the cloud, but not asking the question of, hey, can I understand how your security team is brought into that? It makes me very busy, and I love that. But I think what we do exceedingly well is taking security down to the lowest level that we can, and make sure that it's just embedded in our culture. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the growth that we've had, and I think it's only going to get bigger and better. And so I look forward to what our next chapter is. But we've got a great leadership team from our CEO down, and then the security practice run by Lee Washkevich and David Porch. I think we've got a great team, and more importantly, it's about the clients, and it's about protecting them. That is the core base of everything we do.
Well, Jason, you have a wealth of experience. You're a great ambassador for ePlus, and we appreciate the message to the community today. Hope you'll be able to come on and do this again with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm Steve Morgan, founder of Cybersecurity Ventures and editor-in-chief at Cybercrime magazine. Joining us today was Jason Nelson, client security principal at ePlus, a global provider of advisory and managed security services. To learn more about our sponsor, ePlus, visit eplus.com. You can keep up with all of our media at cybercrimemagazine.com.